Hey everyone, welcome to OWASP NoVA, our chapter meetup for June 2023. We have a special meetup tonight. I think it's the first roundtable we've done in quite some time. We have some very great speakers here, which I'll let introduce themselves shortly. Before that, I want to do a couple announcements. We will have the July and August meetups scheduled shortly, so check those out. Going to be on some mobile and some other interesting topics. Tonight, we're going to be doing a roundtable covering a few different topics, and we'll see what these guys get into and start arguing about. I've encouraged them to argue as much as possible. But to start things off, let's do some intros. Just quick background about yourself and your area that you focus on. You want to start us off, Sean?
Sure. Hi, everybody. It's excited to be here. My name is Sean Porras. I am the Senior Director of Cyber Resilience over at Yahoo. It's a team that involves product security, cloud security, vulnerability management, security architecture, a bunch of different technical security aspects. Super excited to be on that team. We call ourselves the Paranoids, which is pretty fun. And, I've been engaged in security now for, over 10 years. And I love the opportunities that we have to work with our engineering teams and build security in partnership with engineering teams. And I'll probably talk about that a little bit during the panel. But before that, I was head of a software security function. And then I was a consultant doing various software development and systems integration projects. And I am very excited to be here. And if you ever meet me in real life, I love bourbon and I love cortados. So happy to meet you if I ever run into you.
Do you ever combine those two? Because that sounds like a party.
Depends on the night,
Yeah.
But usually not.
Sounds like heartburn.
Yeah. Well, glad to have you. Abdul, you want to do a quick intro?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I think most of the chapter folks know me or at least remember me. I am currently the director of product security at Appian, which is a low-code platform. I've been previously in my career, I've largely been a consultant, working in various federal and financial and commercial areas, helping to mature security programs. I've also been running the Northern Virginia chapter of OWASP for about the past 8 years. Less these days, thanks to Mike and Ben. And I also took part as one of the lead organizers for AppSec USA for 2016 and Global AppSec DC in 2019.
Awesome. Yeah, we didn't let you get very far, did we?
No.
No. Cool. And last but not least, Rich.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Rich Wickersham, Chief Security Architect at Voya Financial. Previously worked at AIG, Fannie Mae, so some local companies, and time as a Fed at the House of Representatives and DHS and CBP, and a contractor to the federal government, Booz Allen Hamilton, for many years, and a few other stops, over 20 years now in the field. So it's been a long and very interesting and fun ride. My team is security architecture and strategy. We do full stack application to infrastructure. Whatever it is, ChatGPT, we're involved.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, we're excited to have you all because you have such a depth of experience. Some overlap for sure, definitely some other, some areas that you've all focused that are a little different. So very excited to have you on and have some questions to go through and see where the conversation leads us. These are very thought leadery questions, and I know no one wants to be called a thought leader, but I guess, you all have been in this industry for long enough that you might not say it on LinkedIn, but you're all, thought leaders. So share some of those with us tonight. Rich, I'll start with you. The first question we have is, we're halfway through 2023. What have we seen or not seen in security that is kind of surprising to you?
So I'm surprised when I look at recent events like MoveIt and targeting one entity to get to many. I've expected to see more of that, and I've expected to see it really when the war broke out in Ukraine, the things that we saw at the beginning. that came out a little bit later, targeting of communications infrastructure, potential targeting of ICS infrastructure, those things expanding outward. I expected to see more, to be quite frank. I expected it to be worse than it is, or worse than it has been. But when I start to look at things like Move It, which becomes bigger than what I think it, or it could be pretty big. And as an architect, I start thinking about MFT across the board. You know, if a successful ransomware threat actor, they're the same conscripted resources that are nation state threat actors. That's their day job, is financially motivated threat actor to deploy ransomware. When they target something, they're going to target everything in that sector. So I don't think Move It's probably the only thing that they've targeted. I'd be curious what Sean and Abdullah think, but you know, it's another canary in the coal mine. I expect to see more of it, and I have been surprised we haven't seen more of it. You know, we can go into what CISA is doing, what companies are doing, and the accountability that's really coming into play now too. But I'll start with that, Mike.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely a good point. Hadn't thought about that, and yeah, makes a lot of sense. Same question to you, Sean. Any thoughts in that area? What has or hasn't happened that surprised you?
You know, the one thing that I thought we would hear, excuse me, a lot more about that we haven't, harkens back to the pain of about a year and a half ago. I think it was just a year and a half ago, was Log4Shell. And I think there's a lot of places that weren't able to respond as quickly as some other places. And I really thought that we would see more of a open fallout from that. And you know, I'm just surprised we haven't heard more stories about companies getting owned through that attack vector.
Do you think that's because we're doing a better job, or do you think that's some other? I mean, yeah, are we doing a good job, or is it just luck?
Neither. You know, maybe they don't know.
We're doing such a bad job; they don't know that they're hacked.
I'm really not sure about the root cause there. I mean, I think what was the stat was around a year in, you know, fewer than 50% of the companies had completed patching for it, right? So, you know, that's a year in. Here we are a year and a half in. I don't think we cleared the hurdle of the remaining 50%. So, you know, what's happening?
Hope they've got great cloud-based WAS.
That'll do it.
Yeah. Abdullah, same question to you.
Yeah, so I controversially, I'm going to agree with Sean.
This is not how this is supposed to go.
I want to change my answer. I disagree with Abdullah.
Log4Shell and SolarWinds as well, to an extent, really shook our industry.
Still is.
Yeah, still. We're still talking about it, right? You see articles periodically, or you see some, you know, notifications about, you know, okay, there's some malicious package out there somewhere in NPM or something like that. But thus far, nothing as widespread as what happened with SolarWinds and Log4Shell. And our industry and in general, people did try and improve things. There was executive orders about software security, and there's this hyper focus on things like software bill of materials, SBOMs, and infrastructure bill of materials, and vulnerability bill of materials. And according to the White House, this march towards zero CVEs. But I'm surprised that another event like that hasn't happened.
You and Sean have the same sort of answer, but you all had a more positive take than I thought you were going to have. So I guess that's a good thing. Why? Yeah, I kind of want to go back to this. I feel like in security, we're all very cynical. You know, everything's on fire. We're always struggling to, you know, change the tire.
Flood equals funding, right?
That too, yes. So what do you feel like we've turned a corner in security to actually start making an impact, where at least for these really high impact, high visibility issues, we've done a pretty good job of educating and patching and fixing or preventing these things? I mean, jump in, whatever your thoughts are.
Security is a moving target. It's never going to stop. And if the moment we feel comfortable with something, it's probably when something really bad's going to happen.
So let's say we do everything right for our organization. Then we need to think about the third parties, because it will be the weakest link in the chain. You know, that's what will be attacked, even if we do it well for ourselves.
Yeah. So would it be safe to say you feel like we're doing a little bit better job, you know, at the core of things, but there's still a lot of risks that, I mean, obviously more and more risks always get kind of poked at by threat actors to find new ways in. So third parties are definitely one of those.
I think, you know, there's a lot of lather, rinse, and repeat in our industry. And, you know, I look at all of the efforts we go through, and, you know, you work on building, you know, everybody's here to build mature programs and to, you know, slowly harden their attack surface and make it harder and harder. But there's still, you know, the easy fish to throw out there. There's still, you know, there's so many places that we need to protect, and so many of the vectors are still so hard to lock down that, you know, I do have this kind of cynical approach, and I think we've seen this on the ransomware side. Rich was talking about this, that where are you going to target, right? If you have a row of 10 cars, 9 of them have alarms, are locked, and have a guard in front of them, and one of them is sitting there with a window open, you're gonna attack that one with the window open. Same thing with our programs. You're going to look around, who's really hard to attack. Let me find a different company, a third-party vendor, a smaller company, even a mom and pop shop. If I'm a criminal versus an APT, you know, different motivations, but, you know, that's where I'm going to go. I think we have a lot of challenges in those smaller companies, smaller organizations, less well-funded government entities, and that's what concerns me as a citizen. You know, not as somebody running a program, but more like, you know, kind of globally what the attack vectors look like and how hardened are we, you know, as a country or as a globe.
Yeah. I forgot where I read it, but I did read that law firms are actually a big target for ransomware these days because they don't have IT. You know, they're
and
a
they
bunch
have
of
money.
lawyers.
Lawyers make a lot of money.
Sensitive data. Yeah. So good place to go. Cool. Well, I think that's good. That those thoughts kind of lead into the next question, which you get to put on your true thought leader hat and say, what's going to happen? What's going to happen the rest of this year? What's going to happen, you know, over the next year? Where do you think things are going to go, both from threat actors? Where's the industry going to go? Give us your full spiel. We can start with you, Sean, since you were just chatting about this.
Pontificating.
Exactly.
You know, this sort of leads into both where do I think things are going to go and kind of what's the new hotness. And I think somebody started out with Chat GPT pretty early. I can't remember if it was backstage or here, but right, generative AI and LLM, like it's everywhere, right? Everybody wants to use it. Everybody is using it. And then, you know, when you think about how you can leverage it to your advantage and how you protect your organization, I think there's going to be both, you know, bookends of that generative AI challenge. So I think that's definitely just going to get hotter and heavier as we get throughout the year, for sure.
You know, Sean, I do agree that is the new hotness, is generative AI. Everyone wants to use it. Our products that we use are throwing it at us, whether or not we want it, is another take I have on that. But, you know, as architects or developers, you know, we need to engage to the left at the use case level, from a governance level too. What data are we feeding into generative AI models? Are we feeding it to a closed model? If the data is being used to train the model, it's a DLP issue potentially.
Yes.
And, you know, I think coming down to the basics, I always think like an architect, well, what do I need to do first? I need to secure my credentials. I need to secure the instance that's associated with the model. Because the model can remember, if you're a regular user, the questions that you asked. So someone can gain access to that environment and steal those questions and use that against you.
Right.
So there are several there are a lot of potential threat models here, but anytime something is new, people make mistakes. Cloud, it's still new, and we're still making mistakes. Generative AI will be the same story. You've got to tread carefully, but you can't stop innovation at the same time. It's opportunity for us.
Agreed. And here's what's really funny. And I was reflecting on this when this tech came out, and I looked at response in the industry. If you think about when cloud first started showing up, and business and product teams were showing up and saying, "Hey, look at this great capability I have to spin up infrastructure." What did the typical InfoSec program or practitioner say? No way. You can't do it. They got in the way, right? We all got bulldozed, right? It was just like, no, but it took a while for a lot of InfoSec programs to convert from no way to, okay, let's figure out how to do this. What I've seen with generative AI is that we have, for the most part, adapted as security practitioners. And just what you were saying, Rich, we looked at it and said, look, you can't stop innovation. You're not going to get in the way of that train. Let's figure out how to partner with our engineering community and product owners and do this the right way. And I saw a much faster reaction time to really recognizing that innovation was going to happen, whether we said yes or no. May as well say yes, get in the boat with the engineering teams and the product teams and the business, row together, but do it in a secure fashion.
Yeah, and we can use it too, which is great.
Yes.
Yeah. So mine, for me, I completely agree. Right, things associated with LLMs, that's a no-brainer. The other really big thing that, and I think Rich, you alluded to it earlier, there's a war in Ukraine right now. There are a lot of high stakes for a lot of countries that are involved. You add on to the fact that next year we have an election, and you really start to see some concerning things happening. You can kind of couple that with AI, and recently there were policies like by a lot of social media that they're not going to restrict as much disinformation and then things associated with that. And you kind of start to see that there's some really concerning things that are potentially going to be coming up in our country, specifically associated with elections. But then, just all the disinformation, ransomware, hacking, and all the things associated with that.
Yeah, that's a good point. On the LLM topic, I'm actually really curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Have you seen, you're all kind of on the defensive side now, but have you seen good defensive use cases for AI so far that you've kind of felt have come to fruition? I feel like there's been a lot of talk about using it for phishing, spear phishing, for better disinformation campaigns, but have you seen good defensive use cases for this as well?
So putting on my red team hat, the best defense is a good offense. And OSINT, open source intelligence gathering, the generative AI models that, BARD in particular is a little bit faster than ChatGPT-4. It's scraping and aggregating. So if you can ask questions, you can scrape and arrive at conclusions. You have to check the accuracy of that data, but it's just another OSINT tool in the arsenal. And I think it's great for collections, potentially, again, with validation of the data that you've collected. There's a number of possibilities there. Adding terminology like citing sources when you're getting something, an answer, to make sure that things are valid. It can be good. It can give you templates, things to help you out. And then the code assistants can, you can get a little bit out of that. I haven't done as much as I would like to, but I do see a lot of potential, and it's potential to make me more efficient. And that's what I'm always looking for.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would love to see scenarios where, if you think about the old school security approach, where somebody has a question and you say, go read that policy. Go find that in our standards, right? Which are pages and pages. If we can enable our data lakes or learning models and let people ask questions about how they should be approaching security and what they're doing, and have that whole body cataloged and available and ready with a smart response, right? Maybe we can federate security back to some of our folks, and be able to address some of the workforce issues that we have. I think there's some positive use cases there that I'm sort of intrigued at exploring.
Yeah, I haven't really seen anything. I mean, as of late, there seems to be kind of an uptick in the talks that folks are doing. I think yesterday, Clint Gibler from SemGrep just gave a talk associated with that. I missed it. I got to watch the recording of it. But, I think it's kind of an interesting thing to be able to potentially leverage it for being able to do things like source code review, for being able to identify patterns and things like that. Now, in our industry, we know that there's, for a number of years, we have vendors kind of marketing and sales pitch that, oh yeah, we have an AI, and our AI is part of our secret sauce, and AI is used to help detect an alert on certain things, but not the way we're seeing this wave of LLMs. I just don't think so.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Sean and Abdul, I know you've both done a lot of AppSec, and Rich, I'm sure you have a thought on this too. Will LLMs solve more bugs for developers than create? I just want a straight up yes or no answer. I don't no benching it, no couching it. Yes or no? Are we going to have more bugs or less bugs due to AI generated code?
When?
Well, fine. You can put a timeline. You can say yes today, no tomorrow, maybe in the future. But
gosh, I'm not going to accept your supposition of the yes or no. I'm going to have to qualify.
That's such a thought leader thing of you to do.
One of the things I really I want to take a look at is what is compare the vuln rates and the types of vulns for the code that is typically generated within the organization, and then the code that's generated with like a Copilot, a code whisperer, et cetera. And see, like, I think I want to make some observations. I really don't know. I know a lot of the code written right now, some of it in the right use case is actually being pretty helpful. And then some of it is kind of garbage, right? So I think it depends. Now, what's the opportunity here, with some training of the model over time?
Yep.
I don't know. I think there's some really good opportunity to have some more secure code written than maybe we're actually doing ourselves.
The more we use the generative AI models, the better the code gets. Yes, the more we use it as security professionals. Like, absolutely. I mean, real quick, I asked for I was looking for a quick reference. The number of breaches in the last 2 years caused by APIs or API leaks. So I was looking for a quick justification, and it had a couple things that were right and a couple things that were wrong. Yeah. But the more of us thumbs up that model, the better it's going to get, and it's going to be the same thing with code. Simply,
so they
get better.
But again, like anything else, when you're introducing something like this, you are bringing on a new set of concerns you have to absolutely address. There's a top 10 now for LLMs, right? And I'm looking through these, and all legitimate, right? Things like injection and so we build these models and train them over time. They get really good at what they're doing, and we kind of perhaps take our foot off the gas pedal and kind of go asleep at the wheel. So there's an exploit, something happens, you are going to have malicious code in your product and not really pay attention and not catch it. So you just have to make sure we have proper guardrails and controls in place to ensure that, yes, we can do all this awesome stuff securely.
Yeah, makes sense.
Never replaces the guardrails and the checks on the other side. I think that's a key. It's an enabler. It's not a solver.
But let's ask though, like, so where is the biggest risk associated with generative AI? Is it when we start building responses or actions as a result of interacting with an LLM that your activities can get hijacked. You can get sent somewhere you didn't plan to get sent, redirected to something that you never signed up for, and boom, you get owned that way, versus it's the code that's getting generated, right? Is it hallucinations of the model? Is it like what do we think is the biggest risk to be concerned about? Is it like, Mike, I'm assuming you were asking that saying, hey, I think this could be one of the bigger things to be interested in, right? Is it, or what are you guys concerned about?
Skynet.
The end of days.
I mean, your model, it's only as good as it's the data that's provided. If that data has become somehow poisoned or compromised or modified, or taken control over by somebody else, and again, it kind of leads back to you're just blindly trusting it. I think that's really where what I'm most concerned about is with LLMs at the moment. Great, but it's a bit more of a trust but verify model, right? You make sure you have to verify what you just did, verify that it's not making calls out to some command and control server or something like that.
Yeah, I think the threats they depend upon the use case too. If you're using for bots and you're giving improper answers to customers or your workforce, and that could be a problem. It could be a big problem if a decision is rendered based upon that bot, or an action is taken by an end user based on an AI hallucination. I think, to use Sean's example, but in the short term. And, I hate to get to the end, of DLP, but, I don't want to feed and have a model learn from my code if my code is proprietary. I don't want a model to learn from my information if that information is proprietary. The secret sauce gets watered down when everyone has it, whatever it is. And we all protect secret sauce somewhere.
I think that's a great call out. I mean, leakage legitimately is happening everywhere. As everybody gets excited and they don't realize the ramifications of what they're feeding into the model. Yeah. And
if we worked for a generative AI company, I mean, we have new companies that are promising us controls, promising us that in some cases that their model is not learning from our data. We have to be assured that those controls are in place and effective. And I think there are guardrails that I want to see before we subscribe, or before any company I work for, or anybody I advise to, subscribes with sharing sensitive data. I think we've got to make sure it's there. The startup space can be, hey, it's all there. Go ahead. Is it?
Commingling of data is real. That's also a real concern. Mm-hmm. If you're in the position where you're developing a product that has this capability, are you commingling multiple customers' data without their knowledge, without their consent? If you're in the DoD, I mean, I could see concerns of accidentally commingling classified with unclassified data. That's definitely a concern there as well.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. Well, I think we'll probably come back to AI at some point, because it's never going away until the next thing pops up. That's the new hotness. Crypto coin had its time, and now we have AI. So I wanted to continue to have your thought leader hats on and ask the age-old question of, what are we still struggling with in 2023? And you can't all just say budgets, since you guys run security programs. That's an assumption we already make. So I don't know, Rich, do you want to start off and kind of think what are we still struggling with in security? It doesn't just have to be your team, but just in general, as a culture, process, etc.
I'll touch on a couple of things. One is we've hit this at a couple of points, we're only as strong as our weakest link, and the public-private partnerships have to be tied together. And SolarWinds or SolarGate was a great example. Managed file transfer, attacks against MoveIt are another example. We are all utilizing these technologies, and whether we're government entities or we're private entities, we're utilizing them, and we have to have accountability, and we need to work as a unit, and we need to share information. I love what DHS is doing now. I love what CISA is doing. I was there a long time ago at DHS, and to see those programs accelerate. But I've always felt like a lot of the private industry doesn't have the crown jewels that some of us have to protect. But they could be servicing our environments, again, to the third party side too. They could be the weakest link in the chain. And the threat environment, if we do everything right and a partner didn't, we're only as strong as that weakest link. So I'll start with that, and I'll come back to it too.
Yeah, good answer. Sean?
Yeah, it's one thing I've just been reflecting on a lot recently when it comes to our industry and our workforce. And that is, a lot of security practitioners are great at understanding security frameworks, destructive thinking. They're not great in what Abdullah's background is, which is consulting, which is listening and figuring out how to solve a problem together with the company and the employees of that company to drive the mission of that company forward in a secure way, in a way that represents that, we're all in this together. A lot of times it's still the police cop, or that focus on, I'm protecting the company, so you must do this. According to policy, you must, right? I think we need like a game changer around training security professionals to be consultative. And it's just not natural. And I've tried to, in some cases, coach folks and spend some time talking about it. And I think you have to live that consulting world, learn techniques like the 5 whys and other things that you can have in your arsenal to understand why somebody's motivated to work away they're working. That will make us so much more effective as an industry. I think there's still a pretty big gap there. I'm curious what Rich and Abdullah think, but as I look around and I look at like our conferences, and there's not a lot of conversations about that. There's certainly no training on it. There's no discussions about it. We focus totally elsewhere. And yet a lot of times the people who are doing the work to secure the organization sit outside of the security function. So we're missing, I think, a major skill. And that's something I've been thinking about lately. I'm curious what you guys think.
Yeah.
So we're struggling to be nice people in 2023 still. That's what you're to summarize. Sorry, Rich, go ahead.
I worked for 5 years for Booz Allen Hamilton, and I had the most career growth I had in my entire career during that time, being able to move to different clients, solve problems, communicate the problem that we were solving. And, it was invaluable to my career. So it set the stage for success from that point. And, I can't say that consulting is the path, but I think moving around, if you're in the same role, you can spend more time looking at your own feet. They say the saying about looking at others' feet if you're an introvert, and then, you get active within your community like we're doing here, but you need to get active outside it and find that way, whether you're a consultant or you're coming out of your comfort zone, or you encourage the people that work for you to come out of that comfort zone and get out and talk about a problem.
And imagine, I love that, Rich. And imagine if you had a culture or a capability where you said, okay, you're a security engineer this year. Next year for 6 months, you're going to take a turn being a junior software developer on that product team. Next 6 months, you're going to be a full stack engineer, and you're going to deal with, and then you're going to come back to security. Yeah. You can now, you've lived, 6 months or a year in the shoes of somebody else. You can totally get the pressures and now apply security better. I'd love to see more programs like that. We do some things like that, but not to that level, not to a enterprise, approach.
Empathy goes a very, very long way, where we fall into a trap as security professionals of, well, all they need to do is just fix this. All they need to do is just do this. Why can't they do that? Well, okay, it's you kind of toss a grenade and walk away half the time, and we really, really need to work together. I know Ben remembers this, but like prior when we were consulting, the thing that I would say to the team all the time is, folks, consultant hats. Put your consultant hats on, keep them on. Remember, the work that we do really results in us giving other people work to do. And so we can either make it very difficult and make it a very long and painful process, or we can kind of partner together, and really that partnership is key. Like you're going to get so much further when you establish relationships and partnerships than you do with having the adversarial, I'm going to stand behind this policy and thou shalt do this because the policy says so. And I don't care the 1,000 other things you're under the gun to do.
But think about this. So again, you were in a consultancy, you've got a consultative approach, that makes sense. But somebody whose job is to do vulnerability management, identify vulnerabilities and pump them through the system. Have they gone through that consultative training to how do you teach empathy? Right? Yeah. Have you taught empathy? Right?
Yeah.
I think it's an opportunity that we have, in the industry, just to reflect on that and say what skills, we focus on the hard skills. Hey, I'm going to send somebody to XYZ SANS training or, Pluralsight or whatever, and go learn the things. Why don't you step back and learn the consultative side of it, the influence side of it, right? That's a big part of our job. Yeah. I don't know how many people, in a given team, in a team of 30 security professionals, how many have empathy and consultative skills on top of their tech skills?
Yeah, I think I've seen organizations where they do either as part of onboarding or during their normal course of working, they will periodically rotate on to teams that are actually responsible, or developer teams, right? And so you tell that vulnerability management person, okay, that vulnerability you found, cool. Go work with these developers and fix it. Submit a pull request, write the test for it. And very quickly, you kind of see the tune change of, oh, okay, all right. Yeah, I got it. I understand.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a good conversation. One thing I always notice is security conferences are about breaking things. Developer conferences are about creating things. And there's barely ever any security people at developer conferences telling them how to build things securely. So I think you guys, that's where a lot of empathy is probably missing, but good points.
Now, just to follow up on that, Mike, so we have a lot of people have a satellite champions program, or, whatever you call it at your company. We happen to call ours deputy paranoids, right? But one thing that we did was, within that program, we sent them actually to an OWASP conference. And so we sent those, and they're developers, they're embedded developers who have some security proclivities, to that conference to see the security world, to have the security conversations. They ate it up. They loved it. And I love what you just shared, the idea of sending security practitioners to a DevOps conference or to an agile development conference or right. That kind of cross-pollination would be fantastic to see more of. Let's set some goals. Let's do it.
Yeah. And I think,
go ahead, Rich.
Last piece I'll add is, when we're bringing in new talent, we're hiring people out of school, give them that, when they're moldable clay, put them in a rotational program when you start them out. If they're in your company, have them move around and get a taste of the business. Or, I think that's a big part of it too. The earlier in your career you get that opportunity, the more likely, when you're moldable clay, that it's going to stick. It may not solve empathy entirely, but hit your head against the wall writing the code, then try to secure the code and try to be on the other side of that scenario, or any number of scenarios. It would help.
Yeah, for sure. Abdul, I'm not sure if you have a different opinion on what we're struggling with in 2023, but I'll give you your time to give you, your thoughts. Good conversation on empathy.
Yeah, I think just from our days in consulting and even now into 2023, looking around, you still see organizations struggling with like developing like a comprehensive, like software security strategy, right? You see organizations that still struggle with that, where I'll have conversations with folks from elsewhere, and they kind of ask like, well, what do I do first? What do I need to prioritize? How do I know what to do? And it's us building programs. We're kind of like, oh, come on, that's obvious. Like, how would you not know that? But really, it's still something that organizations still struggle with, is that prioritization and process of maturing, and then inherently tracking that maturity. So I'm going to give a little bit of a plug to software assurance maturity. And so, to that, I would say leverage SAM and really do a self-assessment or self-evaluation of your organization, or bring a consultancy in to do it if you have the budget. Measure your organization. There is no pass or fail. It's just a matter of where you are as an organization, and then take those things that they've identified and build your plan around it. Build your strategy around the things that you're not doing well, or that you're partially doing, and you can create multi-year plans, and then a couple of years in, do another reevaluation to see where you've progressed, to see where you haven't made progress. I think that's really a great strategy to use.
Yeah. How much did Brian Glass pay you to plug SAM right then?
So, Brian and I used to do we used to do SAM assessments together.
Yeah. Cool. Well, you guys have been very agreeable so far, which is very irritating. Three nice people who are just agreeing on everything. So I have to try to get some hot takes here. What is, I'll start with Sean. What is the most overhyped thing in security right now? What are we focusing too much time on that just does not matter and we're overly obsessed on?
Ooh, overly obsessed.
And why is it S-bombs?
I think, are we over? I don't know if we're overly obsessed on it, but I think, the value proposition is kind of rounded the hill, and that's sort of, so since we're at OWASP and talking about, AppSec, I think a couple of the traditional tools, some of the traditional DAST vendors, and some of the traditional SAST vendors out there, the value that they create for what they're charging, that's pretty. I don't know if there's a ton of hype anymore around it, but it's definitely overinflated what it can produce for a company.
Okay. I don't think you're going to get a lot of disagreement here, unfortunately.
Sorry.
You're not helping me at all. Rich, same question to you.
So let me see here. Sorry, Mike, repeat the question and let me take it from there.
What is
not SaaS and DAS for me?
What is the most overhyped thing in security that we're focusing too much time on that is not either a real risk or not something we can fix, or just not worth taking the time to focus on?
Okay. Non-exploitable vulnerabilities, large swath of vulnerabilities. There are certain ones that we need to pay attention to. The time to remediate exploitable vulnerabilities is key, and it's a KPI, and it's what we need to focus on. Some of the lower level stuff, we do need to think about it, but at a lower priority. We focus in on that number. We're not focusing on the right things. We have limited personnel, limited people, a large threat landscape, third parties, software that's being targeted, all the things that we've gone through. We can't focus on low-level vulnerabilities. We just don't have the energy in industry.
Yeah, CVEs, like just CVEs in general, people struggle with it. Non-exploitable CVEs.
Yep.
I think, and then container CVEs. A lot of these things are just I think there's so much time spent on it, and I think there's a lot more efficient ways we can use our time and focus.
You guys, once again, are disappointing me because you have such great answers that I don't think anyone's going to disagree with. So
I had to make sure my answer was different than Sean's.
That's good. That's good.
They're both very good answers. So
And we're basically pitching, you know what, EPSS. Everybody high on that? SSVC. Like, what are you thinking from how do you? So let's get salty here. How do you prioritize those vulnerabilities? How do you get the right ones in the right hands at the right time? There's no vendor out there is going to help you, right? Not to pitch. We can't pitch vendors, so
Yeah,
but
we don't want to talk about the ones that aren't helpful for sure.
not until the check clears, right?
Yeah.
Abdullah, do you have any other thoughts? Do you want to agree with Rich on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I
most
think
overhyped thing.
Come on, disagree.
I think well, no, like my thing, generally is just the laser-like focus of a lot of organizations on just CVEs, and I think a lot of it has to do with, like, it's there, it's tangible, there's a match, and so then it's a problem. And exploitability, is there a POC? Are you as an is there enough information? Are you as an organization exploitable to this? How you deploy it, is it vulnerable? Do you have mitigating controls? Do you have contingencies in place?
Yeah, makes sense. So, inverse of that question, what do you think we're not focusing enough on? What do you think the industry is just not working enough on? We haven't put enough resources or research into. I'll stick with you, Abdullah. You can.
Oof. What are we not putting enough?
Besides training people to be empathetic.
Yeah, I mean, I think I really think we need to invest more in our security. I know the buzzword of security champions. I really think in a lot of organizations, scalability is very difficult. What's the right number? What's the ratio? Your budget in comparison to the number of the size of your organization, the size of the security team in comparison to your organization. And so I think that definitely needs to be more focused on. I think security really should be not just our responsibility, but everyone's. And to an extent, that needs to be decentralized and trained and evangelized throughout the organization.
Good answer. Rich, you want to jump on that?
So let me see where I want to jump into this one.
By the end of the night, one argument by the end of the night. I'm
gonna say blankly API security, and I'm gonna relate it to third-party risk. We're very good at looking at, across industry, at our APIs, our north-south APIs, our east-west APIs, our clouds, microservices, right? We're good at securing that traffic. We have excellent patterns, but when the third party we're communicating with becomes compromised and an attack is initiated on the wire, this is kind of, the marketing use case for some of the API security tools that are available in industry. And I'm hoping I get challenged by Sean on this. I think it's it's an area that we need to invest more. And I'm looking first at the third party, and let's assume that we've done everything perfectly, and someone else that we're sharing data with is compromised. We need to be able to detect those type of scenarios in the best way possible, I think, across industry. And I think it's an area that needs more focus. I mean, we've seen enough mistakes across a large swath of companies. Everyone going to cloud makes mistakes. They will make mistakes. They've made mistakes. We're maturing in that area. The second piece of that is API security. And I'll start it off with that. Please disagree.
Over to you,
I
Sean.
wholeheartedly disagree.
All right, there we go.
No, I think that's part of a continuum, but it's a broader continuum. It's the whole provenance from beginning to end of the supply chain, right? And focusing on the supply chain from your third-party libraries, from your relationships, from your APIs. That's pretty huge. But I think one of the things that we're really missing is our words and our tools and our deeds, right? So one of the things, it's cliche at this point. We're going to left shift security. Yep, we sure are. How are we going to do it? Well, a lot of the traditional vendors have slapped on DevSecOps into their marketing material, and they use a similar product in a crappy way that doesn't really reduce friction, right? And so we left shifted it? No, we've just moved bad tools and tools that we haven't tuned properly, earlier in the life cycle to annoy people earlier, right? So, what are we missing? I think there's some interesting vendors out there that are solving the problem from a new place, right? They're not trying to, jimmy their old product into this kind of left shifted space. But this, enabling people to do security while you're sleeping is the end game for us. I think that's the only way, because we just can't cover everything, right? And even the risk-based approach, it takes time to analyze, what's the continuum of low to high risk and how are you going to prioritize, and it's too hard. So we have to invest more in the right automated, right size tools earlier and as invisible as possible into the process. And I don't think we're doing a great job at that yet. Our words are, but I don't think we're there yet.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I have one more question before we go through we got quite a few questions on the YouTube channel, so we'll go through those. But before that, we touched on this a little bit, and you can't use the same answer again, Sean. But
I won't, because you seem to be hating on empathy, man. I'm not going to say empathy again around Mike McCabe.
It's a great answer. But beyond empathy, which I agree with, what are the skills that we need? If you're getting into security, what are the skills you need in 2023? What are the gaps we have? What should people be focusing on? You can jump in. Empathy, baseline. Got it.
I think having coding, software development skills is really critical to supplement yourself as a security practitioner, and I think that can help differentiate you.
Okay.
Have some GitHub projects,
Yep.
Have some repos that we can go look at and see that you've been developing. I think that's huge. And another one, it's along the soft skill deal. And here's the deal. I think you can train some of the hard skills. I think it's harder to train some of the others, like being adaptable and being a rapid learner. So I think coming out of school, or even not, right? Like, I don't think you need a degree to be a great engineer, to be a great security professional. You have to be absolutely insatiable to learn, and you have to be able to pick up new skills quickly. And then the last piece for me as a security practitioner, for the most part, I think there's some pockets of security where you don't need this, but a destructive mindset, right? If you like to think about how you break things, right, you are going to be really good in security.
Yeah.
Somebody who's primarily constructive-minded software developer, not as great coming over to the AppSec world, say, as somebody who was always like, yeah, but what if we did this, we could break it. Like, you're the person who's a great way to break in. But coming back to how do you break into the industry, I think demonstrating that you can be flexible, you can learn, that you can code is huge. Forget empathy. Forget it. I've taken it off the table. It's done.
As long as you have a great GitHub history, you don't need to be empathetic.
I'm sure there are people on here that are, wondering, what are we going to ask for as employers? And, I think it's plausible. We're going to ask, send me a link to your GitHub repo. Let's have a look at what's out there. What projects you prepared. Do you have some level, and everybody coming out of school now is probably getting, they can all code. That wasn't the case in the 90s, at least not for me. I mean, I took some coding obviously then too, but I expect to see that, and the growth mindset too. Some of the best professionals I know, a couple of them I can think of, they're music majors. They were music majors coming out of school, but they had the ability to think through and solve problems, and just jumped in, learned, and rotated, learned and learned again, and climbed the ladder. But I think that growth mindset of somebody, there's a certain type of, like with our intern program, and I mentioned that before, and that's always been something every company I've worked for, it's really important to me to invest in that level. And when I interview an intern, I ask them, hey, do you think you could get cloud certified? Do you think you could get one of these certs before you start with me? And you don't have to, but it'd be great if you did. And they'll show up more often than not. The cream of the crop will show up with the cert that I've asked them to have when they start the job. I know that I want to hire that person probably before I've given them their first project and problem to solve.
Yeah, I love that.
Because they go after it, and they're showing me that they're highly capable and they're going to fit well with the team. So a few of those things.
Yeah, I think as a hiring manager, for folks looking to get into security, so we're not talking about seasoned security professionals. We're talking about people trying to break into the industry, potentially college hires. Really, I'm looking for passion, and I know that may sound a little cliche, but like you folks said, do they have a GitHub page, or are they writing code? Are they committing code to open source projects? Meetups, we talk about OWASP, right? Are you going to OWASP? Are you showing interest in local meetups? Are you going to conferences? Are you trying to speak at conferences? I'll speak with college hires where they said, oh yeah, I started a cybersecurity club at my university, and I did this and that. Like that's huge. Yeah. That shows so much initiative and drive and passion toward what you want. And so I really think that plays such a big part in it. I'm more interested in seeing what you do rather than, there's only a very, very small handful of certifications that I'll look at and say, okay, yeah, that's I want to consider that. But otherwise, it's more about your drive, your personal passion for the industry, and yeah.
Let me give you one example of something I got exposed to, and I loved this person. I went to a recruiting event. We were talking to some engineering students, and I was kind of walking through. It's kind of like, hey, talk about your typical day and what you do. So I did, and then afterwards, this student came up, right around I think it was a junior, and in college, and he walks up and he turns the screen to me and he says, "Have you been playing with ChatGPT? I think this is so cool." I said, yeah. I said, he said, here's what I was doing. While I was talking, he was actually asking ChatGPT some questions about the material that I was sharing, and then digging in and saying, so as I was sharing, what we do from an AppSec and destructive mind and blah, 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 he was going through and saying, how would you attack a website? What would you use? What are the techniques? And he had a whole thread, and he was just so excited. And he was like, oh, man, I just can't put this stuff down. It's like, I love that attitude, right? That is somebody just hungry and, going the extra mile. That was awesome. So when you talk about that passion, like one thing that's really key is like, you can't fake the passion, and it's okay if security isn't the thing for you. Find the thing that scratches that itch that makes you excited. So maybe it's standing up infrastructure in the cloud. Maybe it's doing the whole thing soup to nuts, being a full stack engineer on an app. Maybe it's doing JavaScript development. Maybe it's attacking sites. Like what is the thing? And then dig into it. So some of it is continuing to explore so that you find that passion. So when you go and interview with Abdullah, it's just oozing off of you, right? And I think that is a big thing, is really exploring until you find that spot. And I don't know if you guys have had this experience, when you go to DEF CON, there's all the different villages, and when you find your people. One of the people I went to the first time, yep. She said, I tried this village, I tried that village, I went to this one. Those were my people, right? So once you find that thing, then you have the passion, and you can, dig in from there, and Abdullah will give you a job, but not if you have empathy, because Mike told him that's not cool.
And Abdullah, I'd like to add to that too. And same, Sean, I think, we didn't in the 90s, and, not to age myself, but, these opportunities weren't there. DEF CON was so small. I remember, it was very early 2000s when a friend of mine attended, and he's like, "You need to come here. This is what you're about," and so I did, and I've been going for a long time. But I found my tribe, and as it got bigger, like villages, like the Recon Village is my favorite. But you find your tribe, and also local events like B-Sides. And this is a plug for B-Sides NoVA, September 8th and 9th. And I'm on the board of B-Sides. I love organizing these events and giving people the opportunities locally that I didn't have. And it's, you're going to meet a bunch of other people with the same passion that you have for security and across a vast array of areas. You'll find your tribe. You don't need to fly to Las Vegas to do it. You can do it locally. And that wasn't always the case a long time ago.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome answers. Well, let's try to dig through a few of these audience questions before we wrap up. So the first one is, how long before AI chooses to provide insecure code? So I guess, when does it become sentient and start putting evals and everything?
If your data set is terrible and you write, that'll happen pretty quick. Just if it starts scraping Stack Overflow, you're gonna be in trouble.
I think we're too late.
Model with poor code.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we're too late on that one.
It's too late. Yes, it's already happened.
Yeah. So soon, I think, is the answer we're going to go with on that one. I really like this question. What are your thoughts on the future of automotive, maritime, and building infiltration, testing, training, and market growth? Will AI consume the market? Jump into that wherever you'd like to.
Read that again.
Yeah, please read it.
Automotive, maritime.
Please don't
building.
make me read it in. That's
good.
So many words.
Good. I disagree.
What are there we go, finally. What are your thoughts on the future of automotive, maritime, and building infiltration, testing, training, and market growth? Will AI consume the market? So is AI going to take over, I don't know, I guess, penetration testing of these different areas? Is AI going to hack our boats? That's the question.
I think AI is terrifying. I think we sure could. I think the sky's the limit, both from negative and positive use cases. So, you imagine it. You think Skynet. I think we can get there. I think we are in a pivotal moment, maybe too late. So, what you're asking, sure, why not? Let me be controversial, right? So
there we go. Anyone else have?
What do you think, Rich?
It's a long way off. I don't think we're as close as you do to Skynet. Obviously, the timeline of the Terminator movies changed multiple times due to some actions, but I think AI and generative AI, but just AI in general, and will be an enabler to make us more efficient in the short term across not just cybersecurity, but in the long run, there is no world governing body over AI. There's nothing more powerful than, and we've seen this. We saw this in California. We saw a lot of attack surface open up in social media platforms, open APIs from a long time ago that people scraped at, and things that became available that were used ultimately against the West, and others. And I think we're going to need global governance over AI at some point. It's the only way to be safe ultimately. And I think greed will dictate what happens, and it will get out of control. But I think we've got a long time horizon there.
Yeah, I mean, just like everything else in security, a lot of it is cat and mouse, and so we as professionals are going to have to adjust to the industry of over time. I don't think it's now. I don't think it's anytime soon, but over time and in the future, more and more complex and escalating threats associated with or generated by AI. And so, I mean, it's hard to say right now, but I think I think we're still a ways off. but we are going to have to. It is going to be more reactive, likely, than it will be proactive. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Did you have a point you want to make before we moved on, Rich?
So, I think AI needs guardrails.
Yeah.
You know, we could start with Asimov's laws of robotics, but you know, there's certain utilities that should not be used. Period.
All right.
We went sci-fi in this talk, didn't we?
Yeah. Did you drive a Tesla today? That's how I know how serious you are. If you drove
Cybertruck's on order, and I've been waiting too long.
So you trust the robots somewhat, then?
Of course.
Not those windows.
Look, I think there are so many fabulous use cases, and it's so exciting. It's exciting and terrifying in the same moment. Like, we have to have that cognitive dissonance, because it truly is. But you know, everybody ask yourself, and we have gone sort of left field here, but you know, to get global agreement to guardrails, is there motivation to do that before something catastrophic happens? And then we might get motivated, right? So, you know, what's typical human global behavior? You know, I don't know. I'm a little more cynical than Rich, but or Abdullah, but that's good. We're finally disagreeing, Mike.
Yeah, as we wrap things up. So we touched on conferences a little bit, but how do we get dev event organizers to accept security talks? I think that's a good question. Is it accept security talks, or is it to get people to give talks at dev conferences that are worthwhile? I guess that's the other question too.
Yeah, I mean, that's difficult, right? Obviously, your security talk has to be developer centric. And so your topic has to connect with developers. It can't just be, hey, check out this cool exploit. Developers just are not going to connect with that. And so it has to be centric to secure coding practice or you know, something along those lines that can resonate with the community that's attending that conference.
Yeah, I think, boy, there's a couple different ways to answer this, right? There's certain topics that do bridge that gap. Like what immediately came to mind was, you know, security chaos engineering, and thinking about a little bit of what Aaron Reinhardt and Kelly Shortridge and that group has been talking about in the industry. I think that's a topic that could both be at a security conference as well as a dev conference. So, you know, finding out those the motivations of developers and what would be interesting for them at those kinds of conferences would be key, and then taking those maybe more niche or narrower security topics and blending them and presenting them would be really valuable. But then I think about sort of root issues, and if you say, like, I haven't, this is kind of terrible, but I haven't looked at a dev conference agenda in a while. So what's on that agenda? What percentage of that agenda has got security? You know, at that same recruiting event, I'll tell you, I said, hey, did you go through any secure coding or security training as you were, you know, becoming a technical engineer through your training? And there was one section of one freshman class once for one person, right? And nobody else had really any training on the topic, and said, hey, how can I learn more? I said, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me, right? So I think that same deal of how do we get into curricula academically? How do we get it into the conference circuit? Right. So that's probably some security folks from some security organizations influencing some of these dev organizations, cross-pollination, you know, some communities coming together, I think could have an impact on that as well. So it's maybe more, you know, top-down community versus individual up submitting papers to dev conferences until we get one security talk on the agenda.
Crash their conferences.
Crash them.
Hack the con. Got it. Cool. Well, I want to be cognizant of the time. I want to give you each, you know, a couple minutes to do any plugs or just, you know, make any last points. Rich, you want to, I think you've already gotten one plug in, but feel free to keep plugging B-Sides Nova.
Shameless plug.
Yeah.
Come join us if you're in the Northern Virginia, DC, Maryland area. Besides Nova, George Mason, Arlington campus, the 8th and 9th of September. 8th is training, 9th is the day of the conference, and it'll be a great time. We had almost 1,000 people last year, and it was the quality of content. Come meet your tribe if you haven't found them yet, and if you're new, particularly if you're new to industry, it's just low-cost, community-driven opportunity to get together with like-minded individuals and learn.
Awesome.
So thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Double plug.
Sean, you have anything you want to plug or any last thoughts?
No, nothing.
Disagree about something?
Nothing major to plug. I mean, I think the other element to complement some of the feedback I provided was, I think finding a good mentor out there, who can help you and be your Sherpa through how to get into the industry is important. And so, in that vein, feel free to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. And, let me know that you heard the talk. And, if you have any questions or, need any guidance or suggestions, I'm happy to offer it. That's one thing that I found in our industry is that folks are really readily willing to give of themselves to others. Like we need more folks in this security army, and we're behind, right? So the more folks that we can get, the better. So I'd offer that up. And I think everybody here is on LinkedIn as well. Feel free to reach out to, all of us. I'm being presumptuous, but, would love to connect. And thanks so much for, spending your time with us tonight. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks. Dula, anything you want to plug? You have a SoundCloud you want to plug?
Yeah, part-time DJ. No, just kidding. No, I think if everybody enjoyed this type of talk, please let us know. We'd love to hear feedback. I think there's opportunity to do more panels like this on different topics and bring in other people. I think I personally enjoyed it a ton. And like kind of to add on to what Sean said, advice and guidance and anything along those lines, feel free to reach out. Yeah, we always love to talk and help folks.
Awesome. Well, thank you to everyone who listened and watched. And thank you to you three for taking the time. I thought it was really interesting. Not enough argument for my taste, but we can always do this again. We'll get some bourbon beforehand and, get things fired up.
We can have some very different results.
we can pre-record that and then decide if we publish it or not.
Sounds like a fireside talk or something.
Yeah.
We could do that.
No fear. Fail fast. Let's just do it live. Bourbon live.
Do it.
But yeah, thank you again for taking the time. It was great. And we'll see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Good job.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.